Yo guys, welcome back to another video. I am so excited. OP07 is about to come out in the West, and your boy has been working really hard putting this guide together for you guys. It's finally here, but this is going to be a guide for the OP07 Samurai Yamato build, the one that uses the You Can Be My Samurai event from OP01, if you can believe that. This is not going to have any gameplay. It's just going to be the deck. I'm going to try and make a separate gameplay video, but what I'm going to do is like break down the concept for you guys, show you some of the early iterations of the deck and some other deck lists, a bunch of different things that you can try out, show you the hands, the mulligans, key cards to look out for, tips and tricks that I have for certain matchups that you're for sure going to be facing throughout OP07. And yeah, just try and give you like an all-inclusive kind of little guide here. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible too, but bear with me if it goes on a little longer. So with that in mind though, let's just get started right away and let's jump right into it. Alright, so let's start out with like the actual concept of the deck. So in OP07 we get this awesome Otama card where it's a 2k, it's a 1-cost 2k, which is really great, and it's a searcher, but it only searches for green Land of Wano type cards other than Otama, and that's kind of the kicker. Normally your searchers like this are either just have no counter or they're a 1k. This, you get a 2k, but it can only search green cards. But it's okay. Like when this first came out, everyone was like, man, this is really cool, but I don't know, it just seems really underwhelming. But then this weird magical thing happened at like the beginning of OP07 where people were testing, and I don't know like the exact like origin story of this, but there was a few people. There's a player called Ryu and a player called LUCCI, and they've come up with some really interesting builds before, but I think it was like, you know, a few people were kind of like messing around. People were doing this in other builds, not using Yamato, but like using the Samurai event and kind of cheating out the 2 draws. So I'm sorry I don't have like a really awesome origin story for you guys or anything, but the idea is this. You play Otama, and you find your Izos, you find your 4-cost Hyoris, you find your You Can Be My Samurai, you find your Momonosuke Searchers, all the green cards, right? Or your Yamasans. And then you play this 4-cost Hiyori as well. And because Hiyori is activate main, it doesn't matter if she's rested or not. And like obviously you're not going to attack with her or anything. So you have those 2 cards on the field, and then you play You Can Be My Samurai, and you rest those 2. You get 2 draw, like you draw 2. And then you can still use Hiyori's activate main effect and for example, play a 5-cost Momonosuke blocker out of your hand to then heal Otama back onto your life, and you get the draw from Hiyori. So you just got 3 draws. You drew 3, you played a blocker, and you healed a life. That's really crazy, and that's with 4 cards, right? And they're all searchable. That's what makes this like it's very cohesive. It's all searchable. It's consistent, right? To a certain degree, and that's what makes it so awesome. So that's like the main concept of this is you're early to mid game. You're kind of like chaining these like heals, playing blockers, getting draw. You can play Yamasan, you can play Banish Yamato, you can play Yuma. It doesn't matter, right? You can play whatever 5-cost or less Wano character with Hiyori, and you're still gonna get the draw, and it's still like, you know, in most cases you're cheating out a 5-cost, or even if it's a 4-cost, you still get the draw, right? So you're getting the cycle. Really, really cool stuff. You're doing this for the early and mid game, and then your late game, you got, you know, you got your baddies, you got your big boys, you got 9-cost Zoro, 10-cost Dofi, 9-cost Yamato, 10-cost Ace. You got all these different options for like the really powerful top end that's in green and yellow that you normally don't really have the time, or like the you aren't able to play it in Yamato because you're normally already at like 1 life. You probably don't even have any blockers. You're probably sitting at like 3 or 4 cards. But because of doing the shenanigans here with the You Can Be My Samurai stuff at the beginning of the game, dude, you can end up with like, you can have 2 to 3 life easy, 1 to 2 Momonosuke blockers on board, and you can have like, I mean, you'll see when this deck high rolls, you can have like 11 cards in hand, 2 blockers on the field, 1 to 2 blockers, 2 to 3 life, and then you're chaining like 3 to 4 Dofis in a row, and you're just like, oh, I guess I win. Like, it's really crazy. The possibilities with this deck are not endless, obviously, but it's such a different play style from what you're probably used to with Yamato that it takes a lot of getting used to. And like I said though, like when this thing high rolls and you're seeing all your stuff and they're not able to like remove everything you play, it's amazing. It's really, really awesome. And like at the end of the day, even if they're removing cards, like removing characters and stuff off the field, you're still getting a lot of draw and stuff from the event and Hiyori. So worst case scenario is like you don't have any characters on the field, but you got like 9 cards in hand and you can still play Zoro or Dofi, right? So that's like the very general overview of what this new deck does. And this is like one of the earliest iterations of the deck. The very, very early ones didn't even run Hody, which is crazy, because when I first saw that, I was like, no, I'm definitely running 4 Hody. The thing is like, I know it's hard to imagine because Law is a really hot topic right now, Red Purple Law, but he hadn't really been established as the best deck in format until a little bit like halfway through OP07. So this was at the very end of OP06 and the beginning of OP07 when they figured this out. And basically what happened is like people were like, oh well, you know, it's so, you get so much card draw, you have Shirahoshi in here, like you're cycling through everything and it's so domineering and so powerful that you don't even need Hody. But I think people started to figure out like, no, for Red Purple Law you really need Hody, and just for, you know, resting characters in black, or resting the black blockers and stuff, it's really quintessential. So this is not like the very, very first one, but this is essentially like the OG standard that kind of just like started getting passed around towards like a few weeks into OP07, I'd say. Once the code had been cracked, this is kind of like the standard, right? This is what a lot of players played, even like Laundry, one of the best Yamato players in Japan, who came up with the new Sky Aggro version that's still being played in OP08. He even used this build and you know, had good results with it. People have won flagships with this and everything, so it's really, really strong. It's really consistent. I just want to show that we're going to look at the deck lists more in depth later on, but I just want to give you an idea. You got your 4 Momos, 4 Otamas. The cards that you cannot take out are really Momo, Otama, Hiyori, both the Hioris, and Izo. And then 5-cost Momonosuke blocker is the crux of the entire deck. He is the most important card in this list, in my opinion. Then I think 4 Hodis is pretty standard. Your top end is debatable, and your events, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room. And so that only leaves like a few slots where it's like maybe 1 or 2 of these events you can change. You can choose which top end you want. Onami, I think, is kind of a must, especially since ENEL is such a monster in OP07. But this 5-cost Shirahoshi, as you'll see, is as a flex spot that is definitely interchangeable. But if you want the max consistency, to where it's just like, if you don't go up against a lot of LUCCIs and you face, you know, like basically everyone else, like you have a really good chance of winning. You can still lose the black with this deck, but with the 4 Dofis, like if you draw into 2 or 3 year Dofis and you're doing okay, like from the mid game on, then you, even against the black, you have a really good chance. And like Moria as well, you have a really good chance of winning. So that's the OG list, and we'll come back to these later, but I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. All right, I briefly went over this already, but I just want to show you guys so maybe it's easier to see. The concept is, in your first turn, you're going to be playing out searchers. That's like kind of the thing. You definitely want to have searchers. You're playing your Otama to look for all of your green cards. If you don't have Momo, getting Momo is really good, because you really need, if you don't have 5-cost Momonosuke blocker, you probably should mulligan for it. And if you don't have that, you need to use whatever search you have in order to get that Momonosuke blocker. Because as long as you have an Otama and a 5-cost Momonosuke blocker, you can still make things happen, even if you don't get the card draw, right? But you're using Otama to search out all these. You're using Momonosuke to search out all these. Basically, right? You're just using whatever searcher you have to search out the rest of the pieces that you don't have. Just remember, Otama can never get 5-cost Momonosuke blocker. You're probably going to see people making mistakes with it. It does take a second to get used to, of like, oh yeah, I can only get green Wano cards here. But yeah, the good thing is, Otama's not characters. It's just a Wano card, right? So that's nice. And obviously Momonosuke is too. Momonosuke can get anything. Otama can only get the green cards. Just please remember that. So then, as I was saying, you have these 2 cards on the field. You play this, you rest both of them, you draw 2 cards. It's one of the best feelings in the world ever. It's so awesome. And then these are rested, and then you use this Hiyori's activate main to play either, just for example, if you have a Yamasan or a Momo blocker, you play it out. Hiyori goes to your trash. That thing, say Momo blocker goes on the field. You have to play the card first, and then you draw, and then you can heal with Momonosuke. You can put, for example, put Otama back into your life. Yeah, so like this, you'll have, you know, normally you're doing this at 3 or 4 life for your first time if you're able to. That's like a good tempo for being able to do this play. And now you have a blocker, you just healed, and you got the draw. Potentially you got the 2 draw from the event, and then you got the additional draw from Hiyori. So really, really good. And then, like I kind of said before too, you rinse and repeat, right, while establishing blocker Momo and board until your 9-10 Dawn turn. And some lists that run Kikunojo is a really good, like, you know, turn 3, turn 4 play, just to have, especially against black, just to like build up your characters, right? If you don't have a Momo blocker, playing Yamasan can be really good too. Playing Kikunojo is always good. You're just rinse and repeat, right? That's all you're trying to do until you get to 9 and 10 Dawn, and then that's when your big bad boys come into play. And basically, here's the breakdown: is if you are sticking with Zoro and Dofi, which is kind of like the standard, you're playing Zoro for Enel, Bonnie, and Black Yell Luffy, and then you're playing Doflamingo for black, like Lucci and Moria. Dofi's just stronger against black because he's locking their ACOS Morias, their Ishos, their blockers, or like their character. There's Luccis that have attacked and stuff, right? Zoro can get removed more easily because it's a 9 cost, and it's just a little bit of a liability against black. Dofi, like, even if he gets removed the turn after, you've still locked their leader, hopefully, and at least 2 of their characters. So yeah, the other thing too is, though, Dofi's really good into any deck, essentially, if you can chain 2 or 3 of them, right? So like, I've won games against Bonnie where I just chained 3 Dofis in a row. Even though they had like an ACOS kid or something on the field, it didn't matter because I had 3 Dofis, and then was able to just, like, you know, go in and I whittled their hand down, and then was able to win after that, right? Okay, now let's look at just like a quick like turn and dawn flowchart going first. You can obviously, turn 1, you're going to want to play your searchers. So let's say you have an Otama, and even if you don't have Otama, that's fine, just play your Momonosuke. If you don't have either, that kind of sucks. You should definitely try and have 1 search at least. The great thing is if you have like Otama, Momonosuke, and Momonosuke blocker, it's a good feeling, because then you're like, okay, literally all I need to do is search out Hiyori and you can be my samurai, or like hope you draw into it or get it out of life, and you're golden. Then things start clicking, right? So 1 Dawn search, 3 Dawn, you can play Momonosuke, rest him, search for that, and then your 5 Dawn turn is when you can do the spice. Say you already have Otama on the field, then you're ready, you're good to go. You play Hiyori for 4, and then you play, since you have 5 Dawn, you play Hiyori for 4, and then play You Can Be My Samurai for 1, you rest Otama, Hiyori, and then boom, you're off to the races, right? And then hopefully you have the Momonosuke blocker from hand to play. There are times when you don't have your pieces and it's gonna suck, but that's why you have things like Yamasan or Kikunojo, so that's like in those situations, okay, I'm just gonna put, like, you know, a Dawn or 2, depending if you're going first or second, a Dawn or 2 on leader, swing, and then play Kikunojo or play Yamasan if I can, right? But yeah, then 7 Dawn, I mean, if you were able to get the samurai card draw and everything off, then you're sitting pretty. You should be at least 2 or 3 life still, and you're just, you know, you're swinging in with leader every turn. You're trying to get rid of their characters on their board, and you're trying to just get cards out of their hand, right? You don't have to worry. It's not as much about just like, okay, I'm swinging 7 of face, swinging 10 of face, swinging 12 of face. Like, it's not, you don't have to play it like that. That's the nice thing about this deck, is if you like Yamato but you like more control, if you like more like resource management and playing slower, then boy, is this the deck for you. But yeah, 7 Dawn turn, you're gonna want to plant life, heal, and blocker again, or start swinging with your characters and leaders if you don't have any of these options. One really awesome thing about Hiyori, and this is another thing, if you really don't have any searchers, but you have like a Hiyori and a Shirahoshi in hand, or a Hiyori and Kikunojo in hand, then you can always swing 5 with leader. If they take it, boom, just Hiyori into Kikunojo. If they don't, you can always Hiyori into Shirahoshi, which is just going to get you the card draw, right? And people will think that you put a Kikunojo. It's the same bait. Like, you've been able to do this before in other sets, but people will still think that you're putting a Kikunojo there in your life, and they'll think like, oh, but I'm at 4 life, so it doesn't matter. Like, they're not going to get the trigger, so they'll put all their Dawn. They'll swing like whatever 8 or 9 at your leader. They'll waste all their Dawn, and then you just hit a Shirahoshi, and you're like, thank you. Now I just draw 3 trash too, right? And then if you're in a dire situation where it's like, oh my god, I only have 1 life, like say just things go terribly, you can always plant. You're the one who should disappear with Hiyori as well. But if you're in a good spot, you know, you can even do the samurai event again, play another Momo blocker, whatever you can do. Like, there's a lot of different lines that you can play with this deck, which makes it difficult to play, but also makes it so much fun and gives you a lot of like variability and options, right? Now, on your 9 Dawn turn, if you're going first, obviously, and you're in a situation where you think, like, you know, if you're going up against black and they get second, so you have to go first. If you're in a good spot, you could even just throw down a Zoro, right? Because you know they're going to have to spend some resources to KO him. Like, LUCCI often, if they already have stage, they can use leader effect and stage. That's down to 6, and then they need a Tempest kick to get them down to 3. And even then, they still gotta do some other shenanigans. Like, that's a Kaku KO right there. But luckily, OP08 Jack is not in OP07. So they have to either have Kaku or have like double Tempest kicks. And like, it's not the easiest thing. A lot of people can still get rid of him. Obviously, there's also Moria shenanigans that they can get Helmeppos and Tsurus and all that stuff. But you can always play Zoro. If not, you just do what you were doing on your 5 and 7 Dawn turns again. Build up your board even more. Establish another Kikunojo or something like that. That's always good against black. But let's say you're going against ENEL or BONNEY. Slam that Zoro down. You know, swing 5 with leader. Slam that Zoro down. And just, you know, hope that he sticks on the board, right? Hope that ENEL doesn't have a Raigo. Because if you slam a Zoro down, they don't have the Raigo. And you have an Onami in hand. And you can just, you know, give Zoro banish and go for game the next turn. You can beat ENEL pretty easily. It's really amazing, because ENEL is traditionally a pretty hard matchup for Yamato. It's still pretty hard in OP07. I'm not gonna lie. Like, 10 cost ace is a menace, and all they need is 1 Raigo, because you're normally not running more than 2 or 3 Zoros. Most people can't afford to run 4. And even then, if you're playing Zoro, you're losing. You don't have any plays you can do with your Dawn. It's just not worth it. But it can be extremely strong, and it's kind of your only bet. It's your only hope, right? All right. And then after that, so your 10 plus Dawn, this is when, you know, you can start playing Dofis and stuff too. Like I said, the Onami Zoro finish is extremely powerful against ENEL. This is also where you're gonna, like, Black Yellow Luffy, if you throw down that 9 cost Zoro, normally there's not really much they can do. And if you have, so for Black Yellow Luffy, if you play down Zoro and you have a Hody in hand, you rest their Sabos, you're probably gonna win. It's just like how it goes, right? It's really, really strong. And against BONNEY, right, if you can play the Zoro, you want, because a lot of Bonnies in OP07 also play Zoro, so if they steal first and they get down a Zoro in front of you, it's gonna be tough. You kind of have to then try and KO their Zoro. Like, if you Hody and KO their Zoro, that might be one of your only options, if it's even possible. So it can get tricky, and it can be a little messy, but yeah, basically 9-10 Dawn, you just start establishing your big bodies and you just go from there, right? And you try and finish the game. Going second is a little bit different. I tended to like to go first. I like to go first a bit, just because getting that initial search off and just having the option to play that like really optimal 5 Dawn turn. Like, if you high roll, you have the Otama and you can play the Hiyori, you can be my samurai on 5 Dawn. It's just so good. But going second is good too, because in a lot of matchups you want to go second. Like against black, you want to go second. Against Black Yellow Luffy, you kind of yeah, it's tough, because if you're running Zoro, you can justify going first in a lot of those matchups, but always take second against black. LUCCI and Moria, you want to take second. Sometimes you take second from Black Yellow Luffy just so they can't get their Moria on curve. But if you want to just go for the Zoro plan, you can also go first. But back to this, 2 Dawn, obviously you're gonna do some form of search. Playing Otama and then playing Momo is really nice. Obviously, if you're playing against LUCCI, sometimes if you have a you could do a Momo search if you have 2 Dawn, but if you know they can KO 1 or 2 of like both your searchers the next turn, don't play it. Hold on to your Otamas and just try and get that 5-cost Momonosuke so that you can play it all at the same time on your 6 Dawn turn or your 5 Dawn turn with Hiyori and Otama, because otherwise it's gonna get KO'd and you're gonna lose a lot of tempo. And it's just like, yes, you get the search, but you need Otama to stick around, or at least to put her back into your life, right? So please be careful about that. 4 Dawn, you can always swing 7k with leader. If they take, plant the Kikunojo. If not, plant Shirahoshi, like I said before. Against non-black and removal, you can swing 5k with leader and play Kikunojo if you have no better plays. Just like, you know that Kikunojo is not going to get removed, most likely, then you can still play it. It is always kind of a risky play, but sometimes that's all you got. Then 6 Dawn, right? So like here, this is your 5 Dawn here if you have the Otama, but sometimes, say you're playing against black, you're gonna need all 6 of these Dawn. You got 1 for Otama, and then 4, so yeah, 1 for Otama, 4 for Hiyori, and 1 for Samurai. But if you have the Momonosuke in hand, then it's all good. You had to play those 3 cards from your hand, but you drew 2 and then drew another one, and you healed, putting the Otama back in your life, and you got the blocker. Like, even if you have 6 Dawn with 0 characters on the board, you can draw 3, establish a blocker, and heal a life, and you're gonna get that 2k back in the form of Otama, which is really, really strong. Then 8 Dawn, I would say like any combo of leader swing and your 4 to 6 Dawn turn plays. So kind of like your 7 Dawn turn, this is where things get like more fluid, and like you have to judge like kind of what's going on in the game. Then 10 plus, same kind of thing with Zoro and Dofi, and if necessary, you can plant your 0 cost around this time. Just make sure you live another turn. Or if you can't find your big boys and you know like, oh man, maybe if I can last another turn, there's always this option that gives you like another life, which is really nice. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do, and you just try and make best with all the resources that you have. But there are some, like I said, there's a bunch of options. There's so many different things you can do, which is really great. All right, now let's go back and take a look at some of these lists. I'm not going to go too deep into all of these lists just because that'll take too much time. So this is the OG one. This is one where instead of Shirahoshi, you got Kikunojo. And I think Kikunojo, like, I love having Shirahoshi in the build, and it gives you so much more consistency in card draw. But it's like, without Kikunojo, your black matchup is just that much harder. And honestly, Kikunojo is like pretty good against ENEL too. I mean, Kikunojo is really good in general, right? Having, like, knowing that you have, in this list, like, you have 0 cards that are going to come out of your life onto the field, at least having the 4 Kikunojo there gives you, like, just a little bit of that, like, trigger out of life, like, power that, like, Yamato normally has a lot of. So if you're somebody who loves just that knowing that you might have that luck come in and you be able to play those Kikunojos, or obviously you're planting the Kikunojo with Hiyori too. So just knowing that you can do that, if you're one of those, if you're someone who likes that more, like, this is a good list for you. This is where we're starting to deviate from like because you'll notice everything's like 4 4 4 4 4 4, right? Which creates consistency in the deck, but you lose a bit of versatility, right? Obviously there's 2 Zoro, but everything else is a 4 of. Here we see no Shirahoshi, and you get rid of one of the Samurai events to put in, and minus Kikunojo, minus the Samurai, 2 Yamasans. Now, Yamasan is really strong against ENEL, it's really strong against Red Purple Law, and it's just strong in general, right? If you go second and you do Hiyori into Yamasan, it can be extremely strong. Even Red Purple Law probably can't get rid of that, because they're going to need at least like an Otama Gordon or a double. They need 2 cards of power minus, right? And I don't think this is a hot take, but in a lot of these builds, I don't think you really need the 4 of the You Can Be My Samurai. It's nice for consistency, but it is just a dead card in hand, and the only way to get rid of it is the You're the One Who Should Disappear. So I think just like experiment, see what you like, but I think 3 is fine. Like, if you're playing the Shirahoshi build, yeah, you can run 4, right? Like, it's do you want the pure consistency, or do you want the versatility? That's what you kind of have to ask yourself, and it just takes playtesting to figure out what you like. For most of my builds, I started just running 3. I tried 2, but then it feels like it's just not enough, even though you can search it off of both of them. It is a double searchable card, so I think it is totally justifiable to drop it down to 3. My personal favorite builds, like I think this is, I would start with the OG Shirahoshi list and then kind of like work your way through some of these other ones. But I really like this one because it has a little bit of everything, right? The problem with something like this is, again, you're losing a little bit of that consistency, but you have like a little bit of something for every matchup, right? You have the Kikinojos, you have the Yamasans. The only thing here is I took out 2 Onamis, which I love having 4. I really do. I love having 4 Onamis. So you have to like kind of make these concessions and figure out what you want, because the thing that I added in here is Straw Sword, and I just think Straw Sword is so goated in this deck. It's so amazing. Like if you want to run the full 4 Dofi 2 Zoro build with these cards, I think you have to make a concession somewhere. So it's either get rid of your Kikunojo, like change the ratio of Kikunojo and Yamasan to add 4 Onamis, or cut Onami to 2, right? Now this could be Flame Split, or Makyusen, the Ashura 9 Demon Ashura, I forgot the full English name. The one that you rest +3 to your leader character, rest a 3 cost or higher of your own to rest a 5 cost or lower of your opponent's. This is just a flex spot for 2 additional events, because events like Flame Split are so strong against Red Purple Law, and Straw Sword is just like helps you just clutch. And Straw Sword is really good early mid game against Red Purple Law. I'm using it a lot in OP08 right now, and it's super duper strong because Red Purple Law is just in this crazy state right now where they can get 6 cost Sanji out like immediately, and just getting double like 5 cost 6 cost blockers by like turn 3 is just wild. So because of that, I like Straw Sword a lot right now, and it's still really strong in OP07 as well, but this is kind of like you can choose whatever those events you want them to be. All right, now I also have tested a lot of these decks where you run 9 cost Yamato and 10 cost Ace, because I love Ace. I love Ace so much, and Dofi can, like if you like the control variants, I would go Dofi. But if you like you know, obviously this is, you're going to be able to heal more, and you're gonna have just a little bit more like rush and firepower with Hody and 10 cost Ace. This is a really fun list right here, and I really like this. You can see they cut the You're the One Who Should Disappear down to 3, and 9 cost Yamato is only at 3, but it's searchable off Momo, right? And you're hopefully getting a bunch of the card draw here. I would maybe do 3 and 4, but this is, I mean, this is still really good. 4 Yamasan, and you saw like Yamasan and like Banish Yamato kind of like come in and out of the meta just depending on how prevalent Enel was, basically, because Enel was like also came in waves of like being the top dog. Yamasan's kind of more for Red Purple Law, but also good in Enel. And then obviously some people use Banish Yamato, because if you get Banish Yamato out early against Enel, it's just a lot of pressure and you can really get their hand whittled down. And then if you drop a 9 cost Zoro or a 10 cost Dofi, you can normally win from there. But this kind of list is really cool. This is another one very similar, but only like 2 Hodis, which is really interesting. And you see they have the Flame Split, and just for funsies, this Yamato here. This one won a flagship. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was. I tried to look it up just to double check, and I forgot. I saved this picture like a really long time ago, and I was just going through my phone looking at lists, and I remember this being a really cool one. I've tried lists similar to this. Two Hody, like I'm surprised they were able to clutch out an entire flagship only running 2 Hody. But like, you know, if the card draw is there and you just, you know, 9 cost Yamato and 10 cost Ace are still really strong, and I think people undervalue 9 cost Yamato in Yamato, just because it's like like these 2 cards are like just staples in Ace, but I think people undervalue them a little bit in Yamato. So I think there's a lot of room to be explored in these kind of decks too. So people, like all you guys, I'm really looking forward to see what you guys cook, and I've run some builds with 10 cost Ace that I think worked really well, and you know, unfortunately I like to just hop around a lot and change a bunch of stuff, so I never really stayed on one list the entire OP7. But this is my list. I won a locals with this. This was towards the end of OP07, where it was like basically I mean obviously just red, purple, law, LUCCI, ENEL, black, yellow, LUFFY were kind of all at the top, and it was mostly LUCCI, black, yellow, LUFFY, and red, purple, law. And I teched in the 7-cost ENEL. This one of the 7 Linlin was kind of just like a meme, but it actually came in super clutch and won me the game against red, purple, law. So you know, never judge a book by its cover. But 7-cost ENEL is just so good against black. 7-cost ENEL has won me games against Moria. It helps a lot against LUCCI. And then basically what happened is, like, there were so many ENELs and black, yellow, LUFFYs that a lot of people just took out 10-cost Doflamingo and just started running 3. Some people ran 4, but I think a lot of my friends and people I know, we found this sweet spot with 3 Zoros. Banish Yamato was kind of more just of an ENEL tech. I really don't think it's necessary. So you could run 4 Yamasans or even change it up to give one of these events back. But like, here's the 2 Straw Swords. These also helped me win this tournament, or the locals. So yeah, really cool. And I got this law, so that was fun. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to top 16. I had like 2 flagships, I think, that I went to during OP07. I wasn't able to top any of them. One, I took a list very similar to this, and unfortunately just wasn't, I think I went 2 and 2. I wasn't able to clutch it. And the other one, I took the Sky Aggro build that I hadn't practiced enough using that particular build, so I think that hurt me there too. So I wasn't able to clutch it or anything, but I mean, this is a locals that I won. So just to show you like the possibilities, this is what people were like starting to cook towards the end of OP07. You can be very creative with this deck. You can do whatever you want to do with it, right? So that's why I want to show you guys, like, I wanted to show you the basic one, and then show you like there's literally so many possibilities. The core engine kind of needs to be the same if you're going to run the samurai event, but after that it's all up to you. You know, it's all up to you. Whatever spice you want to add, you can. And that's probably the most exciting thing for me, like looking forward to seeing what everyone cooks in the West with that. All right, let's go over some of the hands and mulligans. This is just going to be in general, and I've already said a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to try not to repeat anything too much. But again, 5-cost Momo Blocker is like the crux of the deck. He really, really is. And like, if you don't see a Momo Blocker, you're probably going to lose. Like, just being real, unless you're just rushing them down anyways. But it makes it really hard if you don't have him. And then of course you just need all your other stuff, your other pieces, right? So a good mulligan would be like Momo Blocker, 1 to 2 searches, and then like 1 to 2 searches, but also like 1 to 2. If you can get all your pieces, it's awesome, but that's not going to happen most of the time, right? So if you have a Momo Blocker, an Otama, a Hiyori, and You Can Be My Samurai, you know, like, okay, all I got to do is use Otama to search Momonosuke Searcher, and then having one of these, like one of your top end in hand already, is really nice too. But you don't want, if you get 2 or 3 of your, like, you know, your 10 drop Dofis, unless it's against LUCCI or something, you're probably going to want a mulligan. If you don't get Momo Blocker, you want to prioritize Momonosuke Searcher, because that's the one that can get you Momo Blocker. If you have no Momo Blocker but you have Otama, you can go for it, but you're just creating an extra step for yourself to play Otama to get Momo Searcher to get Momo Blocker. It's a little risky. So I really would say, like, you know, obviously if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. But if you can, try and have at least Momo Blocker or Momo Searcher, because that's gonna just help you set up your pieces. Like, if you're not able to use You Can Be My Samurai like at least once in the game, you're gonna be risking just losing, because you're not gonna have the resources and drawing into the cards that you really need that make this deck so powerful, right? Here are some specific hands and mulligans too. So this is black and LUCCI, basically Moria and LUCCI. Because Moria is still pretty present in OP07, at least it was here in the first half of OP07. Kikunojo, 10-cost Dofi, saving, like I said before, saving Otama. Do not play Otama from hand if you have any concern of her getting KO'd, which she's gonna be. Brook can KO Otama just on play, and Momo, so just remember that. If you play Otama turn 1 and you don't have any backups, or you don't have the pieces that you already need, that's just super risky, probably not worth it. So yeah, obviously Kikunojo is extremely strong against LUCCI, and just like 2-cost Shirahoshi, if that's another tech card that you could tech in if you really wanted to. There's not really room for 2-cost Shirahoshi, but Like your mulligan should be like Dofi, Momo Blocker, and Kikunojo. Those would be like the main three if I had to pick. Then Enel, big boy Enel. So what happens in Enel or in OP07 is most if they know what they're doing, they're gonna try and starve you, even if you're Yamato. Especially if they know they might, if you're gonna be super aggro into them, they might start attacking you as well. But if they notice that you're playing the samurai build and you're gonna be searching and playing it slow, they're probably gonna starve you. And what sucks is like the more you heal, if you play Momo and heal with Otama and get yourself to 5 life, guess what? They just Gidatsu you and you're KO'd. So yeah, luckily they don't have the Egghead Nami from OP08 yet, which is just another thing to look out for. But they do have, everyone runs the Egghead Luffy, or a lot of people run Egghead Luffy. They got Gidatsu. So what you gotta try and do is, if they're not attacking you, is basically you can still use You Can Be My Samurai, or you can even just play a Momo blocker and don't heal, right? Like you could play Otama, Hiyori, You Can Be My Samurai, and play Momonosuke blocker, just don't heal Otama. And yeah, it sucks, but like if you get yourself to 5 life and you give them that potential of Gidatsu, then they still don't attack you. And even if you get them down to like what, 1 life, then there's the total is still 6. So like they can play Yamato and your Momo's gonna get KO'd anyways, right? So you gotta be really careful. And if they're at 2 and you're at 5, your Hody gets KO'd too, by the way. So it's like you need to be really, really careful. One thing you can do, and that I had to do a lot, is you can, like, say you play the Momo, get the draw, you play Hody and take your own life, go down to 3, then you can do a Momo Otama heal or something like that, right? But the main players are going to be Onami and Zoro. It's just plain and simple. Try and go first. If you're running Zoro, go first, play Zoro, hope you have the Onami to go with it. If you can get 2 Onamis in a game, you're going to be in a good spot because you can pressure like mid game. I wouldn't swing early. I would start swinging. It's nice to try and get them down like your 7 Dawn turn, 5 to 7, because it's going to be obvious if you are 9 Dawn turn, you swing 5, they're just going to counter out, right? They might take it. It's hard. It's a lot of like, you have to read your opponent, you have to try and plan things, but you want to have them down to like 1 to 2 life if possible by the time you're playing Zoro, so that you know that you have enough swings to get through, right? You can be risky and try and like starve them back, and then just hope you can, like, you know, get them down with leader. And you can sometimes, like if you leave them at 4 life and you go down, you get them down to 2, say with like an Onami leader swing, but like at that point they're gonna have at least, like, even if they're not getting cards from life, they're probably gonna have enough counter to get out of like whatever your leader swing is. Or it's just going to put you in a difficult situation where you're going to have to guess how much Dawn to put on. You know, it can be tricky. Enel is always tricky. There are so many things that like are good against him, but when you just have all the triggers that you're dealing with and the fact that he just, you know, can heal so much, it's just hard. But a Banish Zoro swing coming in is a really great way to make sure you win. So those are your best chances right there. All right, Black Yellow Luffy, similar to Enel, it's basically Onami and Zoro, but you're less worried about things getting KO'd, right? If you play a 5-cost Momo, you know that Egghead Luffy can't touch it unless they're running something like, if they're running the cost reduction stuff, then yeah, like Ice Age or like 10-cost Kuzan, then yeah, it's a little scary. But for the most part, most people probably aren't going to be. I just don't think that's the strongest version of the deck anyways, so it's really similar. It's honestly like the same thing. I'd say Black Yellow Luffy is a lot more free than Enel, honestly, because even 10-cost Dofi is really strong. You like, if you can rest their or like if you can lock their like 5-cost Luffys or their aces or whatever, and then just rest, you get a Dofi or 2 on the field and rest their Sabo blockers, and then can swing in with all the attacks that you still have remaining, you're probably gonna win. Just be careful, because if you miss time your first or second swing and then they have like 2 flampees or something, they can just take their own life and get that bad boy started. And if they go second and they get their life down, and especially if they're using flampe, because they get the life and the extra draw, so their hand's going to be huge. And then if they're playing Moria and they can start chaining some of those the kids into the adult versions and stuff, like the buffs, it can be pretty hard. Black Yellow Luffy is still a really good deck. It's not like a free matchup by any means, but if you have the Zoro, it's really strong, because Like Bonnie is really good against Black Yellow Luffy as well, mostly, especially in OP07, just because a lot of them run the Zoro or the Doflamingos, or even 8 cost Kid is still pretty strong into Black Yellow Luffy, but obviously Zoro's your best shot there. Bonnie, like I said, 9 cost Zoro, try and go first. What you're gonna do is hopefully you draw into a Hody, because what you really need to do is you can rest their Hawkins, and hopefully like their Erouge and their Hawkins, you rest them. Sometimes you just need to try and clear their board. So say it's like 7 Dawn turn, maybe hopefully you've gotten in 1 attack through life, so they're at 3 life. You play Hody, get a card out of their hand with leader swing, and then go 10 into Hawkins. That's normally the best way to do it. If you get rid of their Hawkins and they don't have another one, you're in a pretty good spot, because then all you have to do is worry about like getting Zoro on the board and maybe resting their Rouge or something with the Izo. But the truth is like having 2 Hodis is really strong against Bonnie, and I know that doesn't happen a lot, but Bonnie is a tough matchup for Yamato. Even the Samurai build, I know a lot of people were saying it's like really favored for, I've heard people say it's really favored for Yamato. I don't really think it is, because if Bonnie goes first and they get their own Zoro on the field, like their leader effect can still rest Zoro when you do the when attacking version of it. So if they have a Dawn up, you're only getting 2 attacks off. So that's where having like Zoro plus Dofi can be really strong, because you're just like buying yourself more time. But like it just becomes like a battle of the top end, right? And if you lose the dice roll and they have the cards they need, like you're gonna lose a lot of the times, right? But I do think, compared to basically any other Yamato deck, this one has a much better shot. I would say it's maybe a little bit in Yamato's favor, but if it's a good Bonnie player and they know what they're doing, I'd say it's a lot closer to 50-50. All right, and now we're gonna talk about Law. This is the last one, and I don't want to spend too much time on this one either, but it is a very specific one, right? There are kind of like 2 ways you can do it because you're playing the Samurai build. But here are some things that are just like always a must, right? Like you want to go first. If you win the dice roll, don't even think about it. Just take first. There is no debate. Do not go second. If the red purple Law player knows what they're doing, they're going to steal first from you as well. It's just better in every situation. You cannot give them the time to set up like multiple blockers and block you getting in your first attack to get them down to 2 life, because that is so crucial for just like setting up and everything. I know I've seen some notes and stuff too that say that like try and tell you to play red purple Law really slow with the Samurai build, and I don't really love it. So my suggestion is gonna be mulligan for Hody and Izo. If you're running Straw Sword, that's a plus. If you're running Flame Split or the Makyusen, those are really good too. Here's the other thing, like I said before, Yamasan is really good because of his 7k stat line. A Momo with Otama is okay for a heal. Never just play Momo blocker on its own, because it's just gonna get bottom decked and you just wasted 5 Dawn. But if you heal, at least you're getting that. And a lot of the times I would do the classic Hiyori Onami plant to get rid of their 5 cost kids and queens. This is the 2 types of gameplays, right? Like I said, there's a slow approach and a rush approach, and I still like the rush approach, honestly, especially like I think just later on into OP07, I think this was kind of the way you had to do it. So if you want to, you can play an Otama on turn 1 and like look for an Izo. I don't really think Momo's worth it. You can just play it to get the card out of your hand to bait Gordon or raise max, and just so you can take the first life if you want to go up to 6 cards, because if you don't, you always have to be careful of 4 cost blocker Law. It's not as common. There's not as much room for it in OP07. It's much more common now in OP08. But it is a good card against ENEL. It is good against Black Yellow Luffy. So people do run it in OP07. So be careful about that, right? So if you want to just get it out of your hand so that you can take the life, if you want to, like, you value the getting the extra card over countering out of the swing, that's totally cool. If not, like, play an Izo or play an Otama to look for your Izo or something like that, right? Then turn 2, it's just 8k leader swing. This is assuming you go first. If you go second, 9k. Just put all 4 Dawn and just go. You swing 9. Hopefully they're going to take it. Most of the time too, it's in the Law's best interest to take the first hit, because if they don't and you have the Onami, like a rest and Onami or something, like they're just risking first of all, they're just losing resources that they really need towards the end of the game to get out of your final like Hody swing for lethal. But yeah, most people will take that first swing as long as you're an 8 or 9k. If you're gonna swing 6, if you're gonna swing 7, they're gonna be really tempted to block or counter out, and they probably should, right? So that's why you just got to put all your Donna and go. Turn 3 is good for like, say they're playing Shariah or something, and you know that's going to be trouble. I've won games because on turn 3 I play Ezo, rest their Shariah, and swing 7 at Shariah and just KO it and get it out of the way, right? Or maybe I think I was going second because they played Shariah on their turn 2. So yeah, 3, 4, swing 6 at Shariah, and they're not going to counter out of that. They take it, right? And then they didn't have another Shariah to play, or they needed to use their Dom for other stuff. I ended up winning the game, even though I went second, right? And I've lost because I've lost games before too, where I rested Shariah and swung 6k at leader. They just 2k out of it, and they still have Shariah right there. So sometimes it just takes you thinking like, okay, what's more important for me to go for face or to get rid of their characters, right? And in that sense, I do understand the aspect of like the slow play. But just to continue with this, right? Turn 4, if you can play Hody on 7 and you think you have a good shot of winning, you can just go for it. I've won, you know, a lot of games on turn 4 playing against Red Purple Law. If you notice they're bricking, if you notice them countering out of 5Ks or something with like a, you know, if you can see what their counter is in their hand just by how they're countering. Another good thing here is they might even have like 2 5-cost blockers or something. They might have a 4-cost and a 5-cost blocker at this point. You can rest them, you can clear board or just pressure them down to get the cards out of their hand, and then turn 5 and on, like honestly, yeah, the clock's ticking at this point. So judge the game stage to the best of your ability and try to go for lethal if you can. If Hody won't come, like if you don't have Hody, start planning for plan B with Zoro or Dofi and set up Momo blocker with Otama to heal, stall, slash, like you're the one who should disappear, or planting an Onami if you think it'll, or KO one of their characters, or if you do run flame split, leave up 1, so hopefully you can rest like a Reiju or a Shachi Penguin that's going to be attacking. And the slow play game, there's not really like a do this that I can tell you. It's more of just like you can do some early game searches, play Ezo to rest their early blockers and get their character. What you're trying to do is clear as many characters off their board as you can while doing the You Can Be My Samurai, so that you have like 11 cards in hand, they have like 4, and then they run out of resources faster than you. Hopefully you're getting rid of some of their characters on their board. But here's the thing is, like, if they draw into 2 Reiju, or God forbid they draw into like 3 Reiju, you just lose then, right? So it's like, to me, I do kind of prefer the rush thing, because it's like no matter what you do, if they find their Reijus and then their Kid Killers, like it's over, man. You're gonna lose. It doesn't matter if you have 11 cards in hand, because they're gonna set up like 4 characters. They might have 1 or 2 Kid Killers like ready to go. Yeah, and then with the Reijus, they'll have enough counter to just counter out of most of your swings, because you're not doing anything crazy until you get Zoro and Dofi. If you do get a Zoro on the field and they don't just have like 3 or I guess 2 Raise Max Gordons, but Dofi is even better obviously because they need 3 cards to deal with it. Like I have one weird Red Purple Law games where I got 2 Dofis on the field and then was able to swing in, right? But this is also where I really like 9-cost Yamato too. I have actually, more than you think, 9-cost Yamato and 10-cost Ace have won me games against Red Purple Law, because I counter out as much as I can while playing leader Ezo and attacking with leader, playing Ezo and Hody, and then you get the heal. You go down to 1 life on your 9-Don turn, you get the Yamato heal, but hopefully you have like enough cards in hand, and then the 10-cost Ace can get you another turn, and then by that point, if you have 2 or 3 big bodies on the board, you're gonna win. And then like you're gonna have enough firepower to beat Law. The problem is just most of the time you don't get to that point, right? So that in a nutshell is Red Purple Law. Okay, and just here at the very end, these are some supplemental links and guides. These are Riki's notes and Rue's notes that you can find. I will try to remember to put these in the description, so they'll be there for you guys to check out. I believe Riki updated his in like May, I believe. Rue's I don't believe is updated, so they are a little bit like behind the times, but like the concept and all the information there is like still very valid and still really helpful. I used it. These are what I studied during OP07 too. This helped me make this that you're watching here. And yeah, So go check them out, support other creators and other people that you see with like that have like you know, are playing the Yamato lists or the samurai lists, and I just wanted to give them a shout out as well. And that is it. I believe I kept this under an hour. I was trying to make it as short as possible, but there's so much stuff. I spent so much time. This felt like I was making like a school report or something, man. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun making this, and I really, really hope it isn't too long for you guys. Like, just, you know, thank you so much if you're watching here at the end. Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions. I tried to cover like as much of the bases as I could. I tried to give as many deck lists as I could, and again, I'll just end it here with like, Yamato is my favorite leader because it's so much fun to build decks around, and like I am just so excited to see what the West does, what the West cooks up with. And like even in OP08, the aggro kind of mid-tempo versions are a little more popular right now, but some people are coming back to the samurai builds, and we're still cooking. So I have a lot of ideas that I'm cooking for OP08 as well, but just for now, thank you so much. And I will try and have a gameplay video, like a separate gameplay video up as well. But yeah, I don't want to drag this on any longer than it needs to be. So just thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.